Adverbial clauses. This is part 1 of adverbial clauses, and in this particular video we look at just an intro to adverbial clauses, plus we look at specifically at time clauses. Alright, now an adverbial clause modifies some piece of information in the main clause. And this is often the verb. Okay, so it's often the verb. It doesn't have to be the verb that's being modified, but it could be an adverbial or even an adjective. So perhaps best just to say some piece of information in the main clause. Let's now go to some examples. So he hasn't been the same since he had the accident. Now here we're using the blue color to indicate the main clause. So this is your main clause. And this is your adverbial clause here, including the since. So that's adverbial. Okay, adverbial clauses are also subordinate clauses. So you could also watch the video that we have on subordinate clauses. In fact, I recommend it. They're also what we call dependent clauses, which means they can't stand by themselves. For example, if I just told you since he had the accident, you would obviously then say ask for more information because it's not a complete piece of information or complete sentence. Whereas if I said he hasn't been the same, that might in itself stand by itself. So the main clauses are independent, but the subordinate adverbial clause is usually dependent. Now, so he hasn't been the same since he had the accident, so he's currently not the same now, and the point at which he changed was when he had the accident, so since he had the accident. So we're actually modifying when his state of being changed. So we're modifying the verb with this one. She ate the pizza once it had cooled. So again, this is indicating time or the point at which she ate the pizza. So again, we would be modifying the verb when she ate it. Now this one is slightly different. So this is your main clause. They climbed through the window carefully so that they didn't wake anyone. Well, they didn't climb through the window in order not to wake anyone. They climbed through carefully so that, or in order to not wake anyone, so that they wouldn't wake anyone. So carefully is actually being modified here. So it's your adverb that's being modified by the adverbial clause. And I might also point out that these are both indicating time, since and once, whereas this is your reason for saying your reason for doing this. So climbing through carefully, the reason is not to wake anyone. Now, when we use so that, I'll just show that there's a bit of variety. Instead of so that, we could have also changed our sentence a little bit. And we could have said something like in order to, and then the final section of that clause would be in order to not wake anyone. Alternatively, you could have, and probably the way that I would naturally do it would be to create it like this, and then actually put the not here in order not to and then wake anyone. Alright, so this just shows you that so that as the subordinating conjunction could also, we have another subordinating conjunction with the same meaning. So there's more than one way to make an adverbial clause. So depending on which subordinating conjunction you want to use, you can do it differently. Right, let's go to the arrangement of clauses. So if we take this sentence, so we put the new or important information second. Now, if you look above, it says she ate the pizza once it had cooled. What we're saying is that the point at which she ate it is what's new or perhaps interesting in this sentence, whereas in this sentence we're saying that eating the pizza was the new or important information. So once it had cooled, she ate the pizza. So this is what we're primarily interested in. So the idea would be that you put the most important or the newest piece of information second. Note as well that here, she ate the pizza once it had cooled. There's no comma. There's no comma separating the clauses. The subordinating conjunction fulfills the role of indicating change of clause. But when you put your subordinating conjunction first and you have your subordinate clause here or your adverbial clause here, we will put a comma. So if the main clause comes second, you usually need to comma that off. So no comma with this one, comma with that one. Now, moving along. I would watch the video on subordinate clauses. It will help you understand clause structure a bit more because this is your subordinate clause and this is your main clause. So simply have a look at that video. All right, now let's look at the heart of the matter here. So we have here a large selection of time clauses using a variety of different subordinating conjunctions. So I'll just read through them and indicate what's actually going on with this time clause. So here we have the main clauses in the light blue and the subordinate adverbial clauses of time in green with the subordinating conjunction in yellow. So this one shows sequence. So the spectators went home after the match was finished. So that is, I'll use a different color. So sequence. Sequence means the order in which they happen. So this presumably happened first and then the spectators went home second. The alarm went off as the burglar entered. So this is, we say it has no duration. That means that there's no real length of time involved. They simply happened, and in this case they happened simultaneously. So they're simultaneous, happening right at the same time. These two events, the alarm going off and then the burglar entering, was simultaneous or close enough. The alarm went off when the burglar entered. This is just again showing sequence, so it's what we would call immediate sequence, so happening straight after, almost simultaneous. There was silence as the president made the announcement, when the president made the announcement, and while the president made the announcement. I've put all three here just to show you how they can be a bit different. So while suggests that there is duration. So with this one, I'll actually write down duration. So while means that it goes on for a length of time, whereas as and when don't usually show duration in that way. So, for example, I couldn't put while in this position, I could not put while in this position, but I can actually use as or when to join these two clauses. So you have to be fairly conscious of what you're doing with your subordinating conjunction, which one you choose and why you're choosing it, particularly with time. The next one is, well, this is two things changing at the same time. So two things changing. As one changes, the other changes. As I learn more, things make less sense. The next one, this is actually a condition. So it could be if, right? It could be like a conditional, but so it's showing condition, and so if this happens, this will happen. But it also shows duration for how long you will never give up. So duration. The next one is immediate sequence again. And that's, I get out of bed as soon as the sun rises. So the sun rises a moment later, you get out of bed. Next one, before you accuse me, take a look at yourself. Here we have before, which is obviously the opposite of after, and it's showing sequence. I'll retire once I've got $1 million. Once here actually shows that something has been achieved. Or you could say completed. He hasn't been the same since he had the accident. This is duration, so we're actually saying how long he has not been the same for, so it's duration again. I believed in the Easter Bunny until I was 17, and again, much like the one above, it's duration. And he was telling the class he had a PhD when his pants fell down. Now, this one has no duration. Because they're not quite simultaneous, and they're not quite simultaneous events. One last thing to tell you in this video is that you need to be aware of the problems associated with will. So most of the time, will should not be used. So here is will. Now, you see we've got a will in this one. I will retire once I've got $1 million. People may make the error of saying I'll retire once I will have $1 million. So will not go in the subordinate clause or the adverbial clause if you've already got your time expression. So just be careful where you place will. For example, if I looked at this one, if I was to say before you will accuse me, take a look at yourself, again it would be wrong. So watch out when you use will. Okay, so that is enough for video 1 on adverbial clauses. You'll now need to watch video number 2.